Where's the
An error occurred
on Twitter? That's fine.
That's so weak.
Yeah.
Well, you can take over, demonetize this. We're not demonetized on this anyway, so.
Right. We were never monetized.
But we're a month late.
As usual, but we're back. The Ides of July.
Intended to be June to commemorate that particular date we have in the title.
That we're going to talk
We're
about
gonna go into that
shortly.
But it's Ides and Apocalypse, two words that have kind of been inverted over the years and centuries, actually, with Ides because of Shakespeare. Try to take a couple of things and turn them around and actually show what their real meaning is. And that's where we get Ides of Apocalypse.
The Ides was always a time of celebration anyway. Before they changed the calendar, it was the beginning time of paying off debts, and it was a time of celebration, and so that's what we
even
use.
Debt forgiveness, and the beginning, the plantings, and bright future ahead, new year. So,
right.
And then Apocalypse, of course, is inverted with mushroom clouds and zombie movies and stuff. And Apocalypse is actually a good thing. It's in the Bible, and
right.
A lot of people would say that Revelation, the book of Revelation, could have very well been called the book of Apocalypse, because that's what Apocalypse is. It's
revealings, revelations.
Revealing things that were...
And we're living through an age of revelations and revealings. And that's the fun thing about what we're doing now with our channel is we're not looking to just fall down rabbit holes and
which we have in the past. We've gone down rabbit holes, but now we know that we've been lied to over the last decades over a lot of things, most everything
that we've learned. And so it's not our goal to find out what the truth is or get to the bottom of it, because I don't know that we can, but we can go back and look at these things that we've been taught, and we can know that they aren't what they've told us, and we can ask questions. And just have people look at things in a new light, in a different light.
And in the overall, you can also just look at and realize it's okay to say you don't know, that we don't know certain things.
Right.
And the theme of this today is going to be kind of what kind of helps us, what formed how we think the way we do now today, and what we went through as children and in our young high school and junior high school lives, and how we had that June 12th, 1981 was a huge transformation date for us.
Right.
And kind of just to give you an idea of, I think for me it's why I can let go of a lot of the things that I've been told before, because of what we went through that summer.
Right.
And also a theme of this is the nothing new under the sun that we've mentioned multiple times in many of our other broadcasts. It's the more and more you grow and start looking and actually seeing, you really know that's true in the Bible. Nothing new under the sun. It's happened before. It's happening now.
Right.
It'll happen again.
Right.
And that's where Apocalypse comes in too, because Apocalypse it's something that you go through yourself. It's individual. It's as people, and that's what Apocalypse is. It's a good thing. It's a growing thing.
Right. You won't replay, will it?
No.
Okay.
I'll cut it out.
And I think one important thing to remember is that everybody's on a different path. Everybody's on a different level of apocalypse.
And I definitely have to do that myself, is realize.
There's a lot of people right now that aren't comfortable in apocalypse and these revelations, and they'd rather have their heads buried in the sand. And you got to have patience with people like that.
Yeah.
We're just not all on the same path, and you got to meet people where you are.
And plus, I'm guilty of being impatient. And I think if you get in the right frame of mind and realize people are on different stages, and I was not there 3-4 years ago.
Right.
So I got to realize, and it makes you, kind of helps you get to be more patient.
Yeah.
Instead of being frustrated all the time. Why don't they see it? Why can't they?
Right. They are where they're supposed to be at the moment, just like you and I. And but anyway, we put the date in there, June 12th, 1981, for a reason. So Lou is my brother, my oldest brother. We have two other brothers. And we're in Tennessee right now, but we came from Texas. And June 12th, 1981 was the
was
day.
a momentous day where
It's seared in our memories.
yeah, we basically snuck out of the house
At midnight.
that night
On Friday.
while our dad was sleeping, and with Mom too. Our grandparents came from
From Tennessee.
and
Drove to Amarillo, Texas.
and got us and saved us, basically.
Right.
So we have never talked about this really publicly. We've talked about it plenty with, Thanksgiving and Christmas and
Right.
remembering stories. And sometimes we tell each other versions that we didn't know or
Right.
incidences we didn't know. But we had an asshole of a dad.
Yeah.
Didn't drink, didn't smoke. I hardly ever heard him cuss.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, he was really smart, genius level, Mensa level. He was, he didn't work for Apple, but he built those computers from scratch.
He would build computers out of parts in the garage, like in the 76, 77 and stuff like that.
Right. And so we were one of the first people to have a computer. We played Space Invaders, and that was early on in the mid 70s.
They even had a version of Risk on there that I used to love to play.
But he was really smart, but we'll just say this, because I was thinking about how we would talk about him,
Yeah. And I meant to say before we even started in on this is that this is not a sympathy ploy or a looking for, we had a tough time, but we were lucky too, because to have the grandmother and the granddad that we had, that could
very strong
that could save us.
Christian. Yeah, definitely. But we were going to be taken out of the home and put into child services if the police got one more call. And they were even going to put my mom in jail because my mom was not.
Yeah, she wasn't protecting us.
She wasn't hurting us, but she was not protecting us, and so they came and got us in the middle of the night while was it Sha-na-na?
They were playing. I can't remember what.
I remember.
Here's the
it was
part
on.
of it too is that earlier that year my grandparents had visited us, and they were giving my two littler brothers, younger brothers, a bath, and she saw bruises all over them, and she was I remember she would tell the story how she was heartbroken. She was ready to grab us all that very minute and take us away.
Right.
But they couldn't do it, but she had to go back to Tennessee with my granddad. But she told me she had a resolve.
Yeah.
And we found out all this later is that she worked the whole time to figure out how she was going to do it, but they were going to grab us and get us out of there.
Right.
Because I had been pulled out of my junior high school.
Yeah, me too.
And
in the middle of school,
child services
told you to
came
come to the office. You think you're in trouble.
And then I'm freaking forced to take my pants down in front of some strange dude while he takes
pictures. Yeah,
Polaroid
and they don't
pictures
tell
of me.
you anything.
No,
what's going
and he was
on.
very abrupt and gruff, and
I have
who
nothing
knows what he's seen in his life.
but disdain for Child Protective Services, and I will say that I'm glad that, even in the bad situation that we were in, Child Protective Services would have been worse, I think. Mm-hmm. And it would have split us up.
Right. And then so leading into the couple of days before June 12th, grandmother has formed this plan with my granddad. They're going to drive back to Amarillo, Texas, and they're going to get a hotel and hang out the early evening. And she's calling my mom, and I remember Mom's confiding in me because I'm 13.
Right.
I turned 14 a week later after we leave. So we're trying to figure out how we're going to do this. We're packing, and now we're packing. My dad actually walked in on me and my brother. I think Yvonne was with me. We were in the closet. We were packing clothes, but we weren't busted in a sense because we were about to be evicted from that home too because my dad had not been paying the rent.
Right.
He was out of work and he was turning down jobs.
He was on food. We were on food stamps.
Yeah.
Here he is. He has this great mind, and He had started his own business. He'd gotten fired from the last job, but he started his own business. And when he went out of business, then he goes to work for another guy, and he can't be on time. So he's out of work for like a year and on food stamps, and he's getting all these job offers.
And
it's
the
beneath
landlord
him.
was a good guy, Mr. Jensen. I remember
Yeah.
him, and he actually took us to his farm to stay for a couple of days one time.
I remember that.
But he had to evict my dad and us because we had not paid rent for so long.
Right.
And so my dad, I imagine when he came in on us and I was packing some of our suitcases,
Yeah.
my heart just leapt. I was
Same.
like, oh my God, we're busted. But then I remembered, I was like,
Your mom
oh,
said,
we're being
we're
kicked-
spring cleaning. Or
She
some
said that,
st-
but I mean, we were about to be kicked out. We knew that. So
Oh, right, yeah.
so he probably chalked it off to we knew we were
I think
about
he
to
thought
have to
something,
leave.
but he, like,
But he kind of messed with me for a minute, and then he left the room, and we never really interacted the rest of that day. So we got, Mom got Dad asleep, however, way she.
and when he slept, he was a hard
Yeah.
sleeper. Like, he didn't wake up for nothing. So that, there was probably no reason to be
And
afraid.
so they worked out the timing of Grandmother and Granddad coming in the car down the street that night.
Mm-hmm.
And then I shoved suitcases outside my bedroom window because it faced the front street. And remember, we had that dog, Girl.
Yeah, right.
Her name was Girl because we never came up with a name for
Yeah,
her.
it's a German Shepherd.
And we got out, and I got all of us, Mom and you and me and the two brothers, we got out. We get to the curb, and we're waiting. Grandmother and Granddad aren't there yet, so we start moving the suitcases down a little bit to just
Right, I know.
not be
To
in front
not
of
be
the
in front of
house.
our house.
Then we,
The neighbor across the street comes out.
the
She's
Weatherlys,
really-
they were having a party, or they were finishing up a party, and she was kind of buzzed, I remember, and she was
Talking real
hollering.
loud.
Yeah.
She has
And-
one of those voices that carry anyway.
And then when she saw, and then Grandmother and Granddad come up in the Mercury Marquis,
Yeah.
1976. I'll never forget
Yeah,
that car.
white
4-barrel 460.
white leather interior.
I think it was white outside. I think it was
Yeah.
red inside.
No, it was white
Was it
leather.
white? So while we're throwing stuff in the trunk, the lady across the street figures out what's happening, and then she's really excited.
Right, right.
She's like, "You're leaving that."
Yeah, because
bastard,"
they
or-
knew, I don't
Yeah.
think they ever called. I think the other people called the police, but everyone
Yeah.
could hear.
Yeah, that was the thing, and it went back to another house we lived in Amarillo, Texas, where, we were, especially me. I don't know, I haven't talked to you about it much about being picked on at school, but I was,
Oh yeah, I
I was
knew.
picked on heavily.
Because you come home and you have the bruises on your arm.
But, and then Dad would never do anything about that.
No, he didn't teach
But
you.
in
how
the
to-
other places where there would be the times where we got lined up against the wall and just the tar beaten out of us, even the kids that picked on us, we would be out in the street later that afternoon because they heard us screaming,
Yeah,
and even the kids that picked on me would be nice to me for a
Yeah.
day or two.
and then my friends, they could only come over when he wasn't there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I also remember being, both houses we lived down the street from the elementary school.
Yeah, was it in walking
And
distance?
I would be in the afternoon after school, I'd be at that playground playing by myself.
Yeah.
And I would see Dad's van coming around the street and
Oh,
heading
and
home
you're-
from
and
work.
you'd be like, ugh.
And my immediate assumption was, I've done something wrong, I'm in trouble, I've got to run home
Yeah.
and get it over with.
Well, I used to walk
And I would
home.
walk in and he would be like, hey.
Right.
And then it would just be a,
Well, no, I remember we would
Anticlimactic.
walk home from school, and there was kind of a curve, so you couldn't see the driveway until you got around a curve, and I would close my eyes just praying that he wouldn't be there, and then when you'd get around and you could see and he would be there, and tears would just well up when you would see him, and you're like, oh. But it was a rough childhood, but
I know other people have had much worse.
Yeah, it's definitely-
In some ways, we're lucky that
I think
there
it
weren't
was
other
good we got out
facets
when
when
we
we did, yeah. And it's like that's in God's timing
Right.
with all of that. And back when we were in that, I didn't like the situation, but I didn't know it was something that I could change.
Like I wasn't, as long as he wasn't around, we had a pretty good life, and that was back in the day when we could actually we'd leave in the morning
and go
and
play
come
all
back,
day
be
and come
gone
back
all
when it was
night.
dark.
Yeah. So it was a good life, but that date is seared in our memory. It was
We were so excited.
Yeah.
Like disbelief, we couldn't believe it. We're
finally
not
here.
going to see him anymore.
Right. Yeah, never once did I miss him But when we got here, of course, that's a transition.
Mm-hmm.
Any kind of life change like that is a transition. But it was a transition for the better, and we had two grandparents that were good role models. A lot of people
Which
in those
they were at a
situations
point
don't
there.
have that.
They were at a point in their life where they should have been, kind of chilling and retired. And
I know they spent a lot of their savings on
us, braces and other
of course,
stuff.
my grandmother, they were probably in their 60s, you think?
Yeah.
And they had 8 children that they had raised, and
Now they were raising one of their daughter's children.
Yeah, because our mom she's kind of like, we have like Google diagnosed her with Asperger's syndrome. There's something wrong with her, like there's a fine line between sanity and mental illness, and she's a functioning.
She's riding it.
Whatever she is, she was almost like a childlike mentality herself. So
yeah,
no way was she going to be able to save us.
But we had a strong grandmother, a strong Christian. I even used to say, still do, is there's a lot to be said for the way my grandmother lived her life.
Yeah.
And then my granddad, he was in World War II. He was in Patton's Third Army. He was D-Day like +3 or 4 or something like that. And he had the map in the hallway that the route through Normandy and Germany and through France and Germany, and it ended up in Austria.
Right.
I remember him saying one time he saw Jesus one night.
Oh, really?
Because he was sick of all the dying, and that's the only war story he ever told that I ever heard, and that he was sitting under a tree crying and asking God to kill him. He was sick of it. He couldn't take it anymore, and Jesus appeared before him.
Wow.
He obviously still had things to do because they came and got us for one, but I mean he was still having to raise the kids that he'd eventually have with grandmother.
Right. Oh, wow. See, I didn't know that.
There's some things I wish I had asked him more.
Yeah.
Him and grandmother both. And I used to talk to grandmother all the time and go by after we moved away and stuff. But
yeah. I do wish we could have talked to him more about World War II, but he didn't really talk about it. So.
No.
But that's another topic. Like we did the last scope on nostalgia, that was the second.
It was a few scopes ago. We did nostalgia and about how there's real, and we used the example of good, true nostalgia is like we remember our grandmother making homemade biscuits at every dinner, like just scratch biscuits and they were so good.
That's a real memory.
And then we use another example where people remember a time when media was true. I'm like, no, it never was, because it's the world.
The New York Times got was it a Pulitzer or
they got a Pulitzer Prize
for covering up genocide in Ukraine.
The Holodomor in Ukraine.
Okay, let's move on to like even a newer one. Like was it not the 60s or 70s for the Gulf of Tonkin incident that lied us into war?
Yeah.
The people right now after
the
having
nostalgia
gone through
for
COVID,
like people like Walter Cronkite and back when they were real
Cronkite
journalists.
was an avid, we learned after his death, he was an avid liberal, and he was so sled. I do find interesting Chris Wallace's dad, Mike Wallace, because he did that documentary on the pandemic that never was, which we did a stream
scope
about
that.
1976. Very similar.
Which falls under Nothing New Under the Sun.
Right. But Mike Wallace
happening.
did a documentary and was, the adverse reactions to the vaccine that they rolled out.
And they yanked it. They yanked it after like 10 casualties.
It was like 25.
25.
Yeah.
I mean.
And they yanked it, yeah. So that's how little valued life is now. But, we've gone through this COVID era where, most people don't even remember what life was like 2 years ago, but they want it to go back to normal.
And then you forget. People forget, and then they have a false nostalgia that takes its place.
Right. And, I don't want it to go back to normal, because going back to normal is going back to sleep.
Like Matt from Quantum of Conscience puts it really well. Would I want to go back and not know what I know now? No, I don't. I do, and then we actually find it more exciting because we in Yvonne love history. Me reading history for the fun of it started.
Nova. Now she's got the one in. Come here, Nova. Come here. Oh, great.
Well, me loving history goes back to when we were still living in Texas with my dad. That was an escape for me.
Right.
I exhausted my school library's history books and all of it. Ancient Greece,
Yeah.
Revolutionary War, Civil War, World War II, World War One. Some
Now-
of them more than others, but
Now to only come to the realization that most
that a
of
lot
that,
of it is not quite the way it's been told to us. And
right.
but
As a matter of fact, a lot of it's opposite, or just.
But I wanted to get into kind of I think, when we came here from Texas, we almost had like a deprogramming.
Yeah.
And, Granddad used to be a drill sergeant in the Army, and he was a very
Because you have to
no
understand,
nonsense.
like when we came here, like we didn't shower daily, we didn't brush our teeth. Like
No.
we had never been to the dentist.
no.
I mean, I know it sounds like we were like backwoods. We really weren't, but we weren't. We hadn't been taught, how to live right and clean and.
There was just a lot of basic things, and so we all had
To
pretty
adjust,
quick. We
and
had
they gave
chores,
us chores.
and
I didn't like
had
it.
to be done.
I didn't like
but
it.
when a granddad, and it was loving.
Yeah.
You look back on it, it's loving, but he had that voice,
He did.
and it could.
Very masculine, very commanding, alpha.
Yep. He said, "This is the way it's going to be." It
Did-
was, and it gave
felt
us structure.
Safe. It felt.
There was one time though, him and my Uncle Jimmy gave me a scare. And it was just us at the house, and you guys were out somewhere. You might have been still living with Jimmy and Debbie, because when we first came here, they couldn't take us all in at once, so we were split among the
Yeah, I
family.
went to live with my.
I went to North Carolina for a while.
with my
You went-
girl cousins, with Lisa and Jill. It was the best summer of my life.
Our two
'cause they
brothers went to.
treated me like a princess. It was
Yeah,
wonderful.
our two brothers went to Chattanooga for a while. We were split up for that first summer,
Yeah.
and then came back together for when school started. But Granddad played a joke on me and said, "Your dad's here to see you."
Why does that say go live?
Because it's saying in broadcast there.
Okay, I
Because
just
I'm
making
showing
sure.
viewers.
Yeah, I see. I think it is live. Okay, I was just making
I
sure.
don't know why it came up again. Or
It's
something.
probably just for Twitter.
Oh, because of that.
Yeah.
But he said, "Your dad's at the front door and wants to talk to you." And I ran and hid.
Yeah.
We'd been there for a couple of months now, but I ran and hid up under a bed.
Oh yeah, this is kind of a topic and a theme I wanted to touch on, is because you and I at that time we feared my dad. We lived in
man.
fear of my dad, and when we came here, we lived in fear that if when we went off to school, we might see him, he might try to kidnap us, and now looking,
But you look back and he was a
he's like 5'7". He's
small
this little
man.
dwee- I mean, he
he was overweight.
picked on kids, but he would never pick on someone
Uh-uh.
his own age. But I was just saying, most of our fears are not founded.
But not in reality.
He was never going to come and
No.
try to.
And he never did. And actually, you look at Amarillo, Texas, and Memphis, Tennessee. He didn't come to Memphis. He woke up and he actually said this in letters. He did write letters at first.
Yeah.
He was so angry when he
He
woke up the
was.
next morning because we were gone. He saw the clothes gone. He couldn't believe it.
He
And I
demanded
bet-
that Mom.
he demanded she come back with the kids.
Right.
And I know that was like, he had a little bit of control in his life,
Right.
and it was all taken away. But he didn't come to Memphis from Amarillo, Texas. He went to Phoenix, Arizona.
Right. He went the other direction.
Where a friend had moved a
Yeah.
couple of years before. And he ended up working with him, I think, at
Yeah.
Motorola or something
Right.
like that. So he didn't even try.
Uh-uh.
And that told me, when we first came, we were talking. It's almost like our grandparents were debriefing us
Yeah.
and like getting it all out. So we talked it out as kids over many sessions and just
Right.
kind of what happened. And I would hear stories that Mom would say, and we would.
That
I would hear
not
stuff
all
that
of us
we didn't
knew.
all know. We knew most of it collectively. And then one day I wrote him a letter, and I said, basically, I wish I'd kept that letter because he sent it back. But I said, "You're no longer my dad."
Yeah.
I wrote him off, and I actually, for my internal self, I claimed my grandparents as my parents.
Yeah.
Because I just, even back then, I just saw there is something good here, and
Yeah.
I can latch onto this. And
Right.
he sent that letter back to me and had underlined stuff and said, "Don't know what you're talking about." And then at the end, he said, "Oh, your grandparents are filling you full of."
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
They
like, "No, these are
poisoning our mind. These are my
Because
memories.
Before I sent that letter, I went to grandmother and granddad. I said, "I want to send this," and they read it, and they were like, "Are you sure
Right.
you want to do this?" And I was very I was a squeamish, picked on runt of a
Yeah.
going into high school. I weighed, when I was going into the 9th grade, I was 5'9" and I weighed 90 pounds. I was skinny as heck.
Yeah.
And I was afraid of my own shadow, but I knew, I was convicted that I basically just wrote him off. But he sent that back, and this is what tells me what kind of a man he was when I look back on that. Is in that letter he did the notations on it and said, "Oh, this is wrong. This didn't happen." But at the end he said, "If that's what you want, that's what you'll get."
Right.
And he was fine. I can't imagine, because I have 3 kids.
I can't imagine that.
And
either.
I can't. And we have 3 kids. My wife was told she would never have, which is a
Right.
whole nother story.
Right.
So
That's it.
I can't.
Doctors don't
Even
know
if
everything.
even if my son had written me to say I don't ever want to see again, I would find a way.
Right.
Like I would, and if I'd find a way. If I'm wrong, I'd have to make it right.
Well, I always thought there would come a time when we would see him. That there, in that moment, it never came.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that now, but
Well, because you and Eric went to visit him that time.
yeah, I was 18 and I was going through a hard time, and he had written. There was correspondence throughout the years, and he had said he would wanted us to come visit. And,
I remember that. Him
and
saying
that he
that.
would pay for the tickets, and I was going through a hard time when I turned it. I had failed school, high school, and I was just going through. And I thought, well, maybe I wanted to give it a chance. It's see if maybe he was sorry or whatever. So me and Eric went with me, and I guess I'm glad I went, but he wasn't sorry.
But you kind of held on to a little bit of like maybe he would.
Yeah.
I think Yvonne wanted to see some kind of
atonement, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. Maybe I was a little,
And that's where it kind of into the theme of how with history and stuff realizing we're being lied to with a lot of stuff. I'm able to let something. I was a little older.
Right.
And so the break was easier for me at
Right.
that time.
Yeah.
So I think there was I had a year, almost 2 years more than you.
Yeah, I think a lot of the reason why we've been able to kind of, a lot of what's happened in the last 2 years for a lot of people has been really destabilizing. But it's not because we had the rug pulled out from under us early on.
Well, and before we had the rug pulled out from under us, it wasn't a very good rug in the first place.
Right.
It was very unstable all the time. We were always on pins and needles. We were always afraid. Because, one time we got the tar beat out of us because some kind of glass of alcohol was poured out.
Yeah, it was poured out and water was put back in it.
One time the thermostat was changed.
One time the Codaphone, which is like a voicemail machine,
I forgot about
Codaphone, and Arthur had redone but he wouldn't fess up. So we all got beat for it. Just stupid stuff, not stuff that like we'd really done wrong.
And so that
it made it easier to when these things are happening, it's like okay, it's like we've been through hard times before, so we were able to adjust, and so that's another reason I don't regret what happened. It's just kind of made us who we are.
But I still look back sometimes, and they say if you're forgiving somebody if you wish them well.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe I've forgiven Dad, but I don't wish him ill.
I don't wish him ill.
But I don't think about him much at all anymore. But when I do, it's stuff like I thought of the other day. He's a great granddad because you're a grandmother now.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
He doesn't even know it.
He doesn't know it. Wow.
And I just can't imagine not knowing that I had a great grandkid.
Or not, even trying to be a part of their lives, but four kids, not just one. But,
Yeah.
But there was a point I was making about the fear, but the fear, this, because you saw Hollywood makes movies about abused women and how the husband, that's mostly that. I know that there are men like that, but that's like rare.
Yeah.
But that fear was never founded. He was never going to come and try and get us and.
Well, Granny used to say it. They had told him, he said, well, you can come to Memphis and see your kids, but first you got to take an ass whooping from
all
her
uncles.
brothers, all Mom's brothers.
Right.
And of course, 2 of them were, longtime firemen that were just.
And then Robert.
They were ready.
Vaughn,
and Robert,
was
too. The
NFL player.
A brother-in-law that used to play for the Ole Miss Rebels and the Denver Broncos. And so there were some, but thing is I would
I would take
I would
the beating.
take that gauntlet to see
Yeah.
my kids, and it told me I was able to be okay.
Right.
And
Right. And the beautiful thing about, when you do have like a rough childhood or a bad childhood, you get two chances in life. You don't get to choose your parents, but you get to choose your life. And I think we've really chosen well, because, I know, you've got 3 kids. They're in the process of growing up. Mine are
yeah,
already
Yours are
grown, and
already-
now I have a grandbaby. So,
and you see the cycle the way it should be,
right.
and I wouldn't trade anything from that past, because I think it makes me where I am, where I can be all the different narratives that I've been told throughout my life from media and NASA and all this
Right.
other stuff. I'm
not wedded to
I know
it. I'm
some
not-
people have gone through some tough times transitioning from what they thought they knew to what they don't know.
Right.
I have been totally cool with just
It's
letting
almost,
it go.
Let me let this dog inside. Hold on. It's almost fun.
It is, because for me it's relearning history,
Right.
and it actually is more exciting, and also it grounds in me more and more how true the Bible is. I
Right.
see it in a different light, and I see it
Right.
more real to me instead of something written
And
thousands of years
seed
ago.
time harvest.
Yeah.
You and I, we got to start over. We found, a partner.
And that's and we want this to come across as grateful too, because to this day, we are still grateful to my grandparents for
Yeah.
it wasn't just that night what they did for us, it's that.
what the legacy they left of,
Yeah.
us trying to be like them or make them proud. And,
Yeah.
and we did,
But the commitment they did in their mid to late 60s to raise kids again,
when
and having to do the disciplining and doing the whole, they were grandparents already,
right.
there were parts of the family that disagreed with them coming to get us. And
Right.
I know my grandmother was like, this is happening, period.
Right. This is my daughter.
Uh-huh.
And so I know that if ever we were in that situation, we would do the same thing too, because that's just what you do when you love your family. But seed time harvest, we've watched our families grow, and we've made these lives for ourselves where our kids actually want to be a part of our lives, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of people out there where the kids don't want anything to do with their parents. And then with COVID and all that's happened in the last 2 years with our food supply and what's
Yeah.
going on with that, gardening, we're learning these concepts of seed time harvest, and learning what's real and what's not, and maybe there are some things that are real that you really shouldn't even be focusing on, because they put so many distractions out there from keeping
Yeah,
you
and
from living your best life.
Even though, Matt, Quantum of Conscious, is not a Christian per se, he knows there's a creator.
Right.
And the people that we listen to, and of course Owen and Crow and Jim Bob and all
Pockets
these
of the
guys. I
Future.
love taking from all these guys, and one thing I'm really getting is, God is real. It's more real to me now just looking
Right.
back. And we were raised in the church too,
Yeah.
especially with grandmother and granddad.
I will
God,
say that's the one thing that my mom did, that she grounded us, because we've had that connection
Somehow
with
we got-
God
yeah.
since from the time we were very young. Oh, look at that bird right there.
What's
we-
up?
It's a picnic table full of birdseed, but June 12th, that's what's been 41, 42 years.
41.
41 years. Looking at how the world was back then, on June 12th, 1981.
Yeah, we just played Kim Carnes' Betty Davis
Yeah,
Eyes.
that was,
the
like,
number
on the
one song
charts.
at the time in the U.S.
Boris was it? No.
Boris Yeltsin was elected on that date in
Yeah,
'91.
right.
There's there were some birthdays that are
Yeah, Anne
the
Frank.
same as Anne Frank. Which
Anne Frank, she was given a diary
There's
on
another-
her birthday.
There's another narrative.
There's another lie. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know if any of you have read the diary of Anne Frank, but I'm just here to tell you she didn't write that.
Well, and if you've read it, you've got to say which version did you read, because there's like 3 or 4 versions.
Right.
And
And then
then-
there's also the fact that, like, if you just read it, not only did Anne Frank not write it, no 12-year-old wrote that, and it sucks.
Yeah, it does.
It
suck.
sucks. highly encourage you
And I
to
guess
try.
supposedly
I couldn't finish it. I couldn't.
It was written with a pen that wasn't invented in those years.
Right.
And
You
then we have George H.W. Bush was born on June 12th.
1924.
Yeah.
In 1924. The famous tear down this wall from Reagan.
Oh, it was on June 12th.
On June 12th.
I think
That was
89,
1980. Yeah,
maybe.
88 or 89.
Jordan Peterson, another narrative teller, was born on June 12th. Oh, and David Rockefeller, which is another.
Oh yeah, one of the so-called. Oh, also on around that time was when the whole AIDS epidemic was getting.
Yeah.
Oh,
that
and
summer,
get this, on July 3rd, 1981, the AIDS epidemic. The New York Times publishes a story about a rare cancer that has been found in 41 homosexuals. Okay, a rare cancer. When they finally got the AIDS scare up and running, it wasn't about it being a cancer.
No.
Cancer was like one of the
But cancer
things that would happen to you.
Cancer in young people is a problem now
Yeah.
because of certain.
And the same
medicines
guy
that have
behind
been-
all that is the same guy behind,
Yeah.
COVID.
We did a show about the CDC and Alexander Langmuir, the head of the first Epidemic Intelligence Service.
Oh my gosh, that
And talking
guy.
about nothing new under the sun. That guy was. That's a good one. What exactly is a Langmuir?
Right. What kind of name
He
is
had
that?
a commanding presence. Remember we played that video of him, and it's like he's a mousy, tall dude
But yeah.
that reads notes. He doesn't even.
As we were
talk
going
off
back
the
and
cuff.
looking, at this date though, you'll see like there were race riots, and then back in the 1300s, like 1389 or something, there was a poll tax that calls the rise of the peasants. It was called the Peasants' Revolt. And as I was reading about it, I'm like, I feel like I'm reading about right now,
Yeah.
like all over the world with the Netherlands and the Italy and all of them, in the streets.
It's
And
like a pendulum, just constantly, kind of back
Right,
and forth.
but they lead us like that way with whatever they're doing, to distract you with.
And they push too far with things, and then it comes back to a more moral type of a time. And there was somebody else that was born. I can't remember
Funeral.
who it was.
Oh, there was a lot of things. It was not a leap year.
Well, on that day in 1981, also there was a fight between Holmes and Spinks because it was a Friday.
Yeah. The Rubik's Cube came out. The AIDS epidemic began. But it's like there's these cycles, and they just read everything that we're going through now.
And
It's like the same.
when it goes to we shouldn't have, when the Bible says so many times, fear not, fear not, fear
Yeah.
not. It is so true, and I know it's hard sometimes in certain situations, but he's
telling you
he's
that
got
for a
this.
reason, and he also tells you what was will be again.
Yeah. And it points out that there are people that want to control this world. There are people that have terrible plans.
Right.
But I
But
replied to this guy on Twitter yesterday. I said, I don't fear any of these people anymore
Right.
because they will fail.
There's a
Because
reason.
they're not good at it because they keep doing the same thing
Right.
over and over again.
And there's a reason why they so heavily lie to you and have to trick you. We are more powerful than they are.
Yeah.
They need us to do whatever it is they want to
And
happen.
that's been a common theme in our stuff going back a couple of years as our broadcasts, as we talk about, you don't have to listen to a white coat. You have your own authority.
Right.
Your own, you can discern. The Bible talks about praying for discernment.
Right.
It's a gift that we can have, and we can develop more in the right if we
Right.
use in the right attitude and stuff, and asking God for that, is that we can have our own discernment. This whole where you have to defer to somebody because
You've got to
of
go to a
degree or
specialist to
something,
figure
or-
out because you didn't go to school for this stuff. Well, there's several times in the last couple of years where I could have gone to see a specialist for something that was going on in my life, and I'm glad that I didn't.
Because it would have made it worse, probably.
Right. With the big pharma and, the sorcery they do with all the medications. I think that's one of the beautiful things that's come out of COVID is just this eye-opening experience where we don't trust. A lot of people look at it as a negative that we don't trust the white coats or the credentialed degrees. I think it's a really good thing that we don't trust them. They've all been trained to think a certain way, to think the same things. Like if
it's just like history in schools now. It's all about memorization. There's no critical thinking involved.
And as far as sickness and disease, it all boils down to being healthy and your immune system and eating right. Let your food be your medicine, and your medicine
attitude as well. The people you surround yourself with.
Oh, I think the mindset is first, because mindset can invite that sickness or that dis-ease in. And then once fear sets in, that compounds, and you're going to a specialist looking for them to tell you, that you can take this pill, it'll make you better, when it almost never does. I know there are some things. I think that the medical field is good at repairing and mending, but not healing. And that's one good thing that's come out in the last 2 years. And while the rest, so many people right now are just wanting so bad to go back and just want things to go back to normal. No, we have the power.
And I think it would
to make things so much better.
And I've read it. I think it doesn't say it explicitly in the Bible, but if you are comfortable in this world, then something's wrong.
Right.
And that there should be some kind of a friction, because I like how Jim Bob talks about, like with an airplane, you have resistance that makes that plane fly. The resistance of the air, the atmosphere.
Well, yeah, when you stick your hand out the window and you've got that air, it's that air that.
But it's resistance that makes that, and that can be a good or a bad thing.
Yeah.
But our so-called tough childhood we had and the transition we did, and
it honed us. It made us into who we are.
It kind of sharpened us a little bit, and we didn't know it at the time. Sometimes I used to cry, about myself and feel sorry for myself and what I was going through, because I didn't have the same life that other kids had. But I look back and I go,
I'm glad, because I
would have been soft.
Look at a lot of them now.
Yeah. One, especially a certain representative in Tennessee that's kind of a lame.
Oh,
lame.
I'm just it's David Kustoff. I'm just gonna say his name.
And you see, because I went to high school with that guy. We went to high school with that guy, and he was a nice guy. He was one of the ones that never picked on me.
Right.
But it's just, I would not want his life now to.
He's a representative in Congress
for $1 million. And he's not even an influencer. He's just there.
He's just there. I think that's a lot of people, like, going through this world. You're just there.
Yeah.
And you're entertained by circuses and whatnot, instead of like really trying to figure out who you are and why you're here, and the fact that we have we're creator beings. These people we are so powerful that they need us to manifest whatever their plans are, because they can't do it themselves.
Or they need us to agree to whatever it is they're planning.
Right, which means that if we decide,
and it's just a strong minority. It's not even a majority, because what is the Bible? One man and with God is a majority.
One man with God is a majority.
And I truly, there's so many things that I see now.
I think my grandmother lived that.
She did.
So
she used to put that piece of Scotch tape in between her eyebrows to try to keep this wrinkle from coming in.
She would be thinking.
There were so many cool things about her, and I'm glad that I did. Even when I moved out and was on my own, I used to go by her house all the time and talk to her, and there would be different aunts and stuff there that I would talk to as well.
Right.
And and now I look back and I wish I had even asked more and talked more about.
Me too.
What she knew, and then Grandmother Wyatt, her mom, because all the first two kids of mine are named after either my grandmother or granddad in one way or another.
Right.
Because I was a junior, I wasn't going to do a third.
Right. Our great-grandmother was a horticulturalist. She was like she grew everything.
She lived to be 96 years old.
Lived on her own until the end.
And at the end, when she died, I remember going to the hospital a couple days before she died. And as soon as I walked in the door, she was, "Hey, Lou." She knew exactly who I was from across the room, and I talked to her for a while. And then a couple of days later, I found out she
Yeah.
had died, and she was so small
Yeah.
when she died. But
Yeah. That she was
I
an
wish I'd asked her more questions. I used to
Me
go by
too.
and talk to her.
She
too.
was married to I can't remember his name.
Chester.
Who he
was
handmade. He made violins like
Yeah.
that. He handmade violins, and would have been nice to talk to him too. But we didn't know him.
We didn't get to meet him. He was a lot older than her.
Yeah.
He was actually in the cavalry that still had horses.
Yeah.
He was, and actually, I wish I'd had that picture on hand, but I look a lot like him. His 20-something-year-old picture. So,
I mean, that's really all we have today. We were just going to talk about our origin story and nostalgia and how, a lot of the fears that we have are unfounded, and a lot of the yearning to go back to normal is yearning to go back to something that never was. It was an illusion. It was like the Truman
facade.
Show.
Oh, this is what I meant to say earlier. What Matt at Quantum Conscious says a lot, even though he's not a Christian, he knows that what this world primary goal is, and for us, from being a Christian background, we call it Satan.
Yeah.
The world's primary goal is to separate you from who you really are.
Right.
To distract you, to fill you with these worldly things, and to keep you busy, and to keep you kind of meek and just follow along, go along to get along, all this stuff. And it's just to separate you from who you really are. And we are beings, I believe, created by God in His image.
Right.
We don't, in a way, we can make each other sick because we're in these frequencies, but we weren't put on this earth and given God's breath to then go around and make somebody ill or die because we just going about our business and breathing.
Right.
I don't believe any of that stuff.
I don't either.
And we need to, a lot of it, we need to step back and just kind of, refigure
reflect
how we think
and not wanting to go back to what was, but be looking forward.
And we need to stop. We need to stop pining for a comfortable time.
Yeah.
We need to start making it a good time. But maybe there's hard work, but it's like a good
maybe
day's hard work where I just built this fence or something.
Right.
That was hard to do, but
Right.
man, look at that fence.
Or just seeking to do God's will instead of just kind of wasting away being entertained and while doing nothing.
And I'm kind of late to this. When we got away from our grandparents' influence, I went narcissistic for a while. I always believed in God, but I was just like, what? I was young. I was 20 years old and just doing my thing and having fun and growing up. And I'm like, man, this is cool. But
right.
I'm late to the party myself. But that's what we do with this channel now is we like to find different topics and look at it a different way.
In a different light.
We've still, we've done a bunch of different views on World War II, and there's going to be more about that because that's an endless. We do believe that the huge catalyst is World War II.
Right. There was
so
all
many
that money.
facets.
All that money being spent on a world war, and then when it ended, a lot of these agencies that we've come to know and hate, came from the funding, not wanting to end that war machine funding. And military-industrial complex is just never ending. That's what
scientific technology.
That's what Ukraine,
all of it.
Ukraine and all that is about. But the beautiful thing about that is if we can shift, the whole paradigm just through where we put our energies and our time.
Yeah.
So, and to me, that's really hopeful. And then also, I think it's fun to go back and look at these different things that happened and different things that you believe in when you stop in for a second and go, wait a minute, why do I believe that? It's because you were programmed, and you start the deprogramming.
Because I had to memorize it in high school or something.
Right. And so it's fun. It's a fun time to be alive, and I know that we're probably headed for some more difficult times, but that's a challenge too. And God says not to fear, and that if God is for you, no man can stand against. So these are really amazing and exciting times, and so we want to leave you with the theme of being grateful for our life, our origin story. It's not the life you'd want for your children, the difficulties, they make you into who you are, and it's what you do with what you are now. And we all have that ability.
And that can be me at 55 right now. Even now I can start right now. What do I do from here on?
Right.
So it's up to you, but God is there for you too. He created you, he loves you.
Right. And so June 12th, 1981 was our
And for somebody who would
origin story.
Who would say, "Oh, there's so many people. God cares about people, but He doesn't care about you individually." It's like there's this C.S. Lewis quote, and I can't remember how verbatim it goes, but He's outside of everything. It's meta. It's so much bigger than it's out of the physical. He can focus on you like you're the only thing in existence.
Right.
And He can do that for everybody. And so that one struck me. I saw that a couple of weeks ago, and I've never seen it like that. I need to read some more of his
C.S. Lewis.
apologetics and stuff.
Yeah. But anyway, we want to thank you for being with us, and I think we'll do one on time next month because we can do it remotely now. We know.
Yeah.
So we will be back next month. Maybe not exactly on the Ides, maybe the week
and
of the
actually
Ides.
Today was actually the Ides. There's
July.
4 times a year it's on the 15th.
And then the other times it's on the 13th.
It's on the 13th.
So it'll be on the 13th next month.
Yeah, August 13th.
And we'll be back. All right, now I'm currently suspended from Twitter, and it looks like it's permanently. I don't know what I did.
There's no reason.
I've emailed and appealed, so I don't know if that will. I don't know what's going on there, but either way, I'll be back on here. You can find me on Truth Social under the same name, if you want. But I didn't know he was.
Oh.
So
Leonard
lived in Amarillo when I was 5 for a summer. Oh wow.
Oh wow. Well, this thing keeps covering up the
comments.
The comment thing.
Lived.
What great grandparents? You are definitely. They're my parents. That's who I see as my parents.
Me too. Yeah, thank you for listening.
Oh, thanks, Leonard.
And we lived in Amarillo from the time I was about 5 till I was about 7 years, maybe.
It was 2nd grade through the 8th.
Yeah.
So.
And I was 1st grade through the 6th. But anyway, thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for watching and share this, and just I hope this came across as a grateful thing overall, because it just we didn't even have it as I know kids have grown up much worse situations than we did.
We had,
and it sucked for us, but we did have a good outcome because of our grandparents, and that's the importance of the family and the my grandparents had tough times before. They could have been divorced, and then what would have happened?
Right.
But then they got through those tough times and they stayed together, and then they saved our asses.
Right.
So, you gotta think about the long game too.
Yeah. Family is wealth.
Mm-hmm. True.
Anyways.
All right.
We will see you next time.
Thanks, guys. I can see that.